The Thunder are one game closer to a championship. We'll recap an exciting Game 5 that happened last night. Also, we'll preview a potential deciding Game 6 in the NHL that's happening tonight. And NDSU just keeps on adding to the class of 2026. We'll chat about it. Hot Mic starts right now.
Hot Mic with Dom Izzo.
Really? Really, Dom?
No. I like what Dom's doing.
Okay.
Dom Izzo.
Jeez, come on, Dom. What do you think I am, a magician?
Yeah, I'm fired up, Dom. What else could I say?
Absolutely. It was great to get on the field, and then Dom came up to me, and I'm trying to walk away from me. I just wanted to enjoy myself out there.
Hot Mic.
Great job.
There's got to be some kind of intelligent question about something.
Coach Dom Izzo, WDAY in Fargo, North Dakota.
Can you give me a layup or something?
Hot Mic. Presented by Northwestern Mutual.
That program is second to none.
On the networks of WDAY.
You know, if it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
Here's Dom Izzo.
Good Tuesday morning. Welcome to this, you couldn't ask for a better day weather-wise edition of Hot Mic. It is the 17th day of June in the year 2025. Thanks for joining us, however you are. WDAY Extra, KSFL TV in Sioux Falls, KNBN in Rapid City. Also streaming on inform.com. You can catch us on WDAY Plus as well. Hello, everybody. Happy to be back. Sam Getzinger filling in for Dom Izzo. He's out on vacation this week. He'll be back on Friday when this show is live on location at the Moorhead Country Club for the Red River Amateur Championship. Looking forward to that. We'll have that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Hot Mic Friday morning, and we'll get you coverage of the championship golf there throughout the weekend on WDAY Extra. Should be a lot of fun. We'll talk more about that later on today, and especially as the week goes on as well. So don't worry about that. We'll get you in the loop with things. What a Monday it was in the sports world. Game 5 of the NBA Finals last night. Saw a little excitement. It was interesting, but the Thunder were able to pull away. We'll recap that game in just a little bit. We also had history in the College World Series yesterday. One of the greatest pitching performances that I have ever seen. Arkansas and Murray State in that game. Matinee action yesterday afternoon. We'll take a look back at that wonderful performance by the Arkansas starting pitcher coming up here in just a little bit. Of course, that leads into a busy day today. As I mentioned off the top of the show, we have a potential deciding Game 6 in the Stanley Cup Finals tonight between Florida and Edmonton. Florida, they're one win away from bringing home another Stanley Cup championship. We're going to preview that to start hour number 2 today. Special guest joining us over Zoom for that. So looking forward to talking a little hockey later on this morning. And, of course, it's Tuesday morning. And that means Mike Mcfeely is back with us at 9:35. Chat everything that's going on. FCS football. We have some breaking news with Sac State and the progress that they're potentially no longer making on the road to FBS. We'll get a breakdown on that. We'll chat a little bit more house settlement and also some news around North Dakota State and stuff like that. Mike was on vacation last week, so happy to get him back today. So again, he'll be in at 9:35. We also have some new Bison football recruiting news to pass along your way, some Bison baseball recruiting news to pass along your way. A lot to get to today, so happy to be here. Let's get into it. I want to start with the NBA Finals last night, Game 5 once again. And to set the scene here, going into last night, series tied at 2 apiece. Indiana, Oklahoma City. The Thunder, if you remember in Game 4, we showed you the highlights yesterday. They played over the weekend. They surged late in the fourth quarter against the Indiana Pacers and were able to pick up a win to even up the series. So that leads us into last night. We'll show you the clips here of what went down in this game being played in Oklahoma City. SGA, the MVP, and the Thunder hosting potential future MVP and Tyrese Halliburton. Interesting day for him, but we pick it up in the first quarter. Pacers trail by 8. A turnover here, and it's Alex Caruso going coast to coast, laying it high off of the window. But what was scary here, Tyrese Halliburton goes down. He would leave the game for a little bit, eventually would come back, had some right leg tightness, and it was just not the game for him. And really, there was a lot of flashes where the Pacers just didn't look like they were ready to play in this Game 5. Jalen Williams finishes on the other end. It's a 13-point lead at this point in the second quarter. SGA doing what he does best. Got a beautiful mid-range jumper. We go to under 4 minutes left here in the first half. Another three on the way from Williams. What a game from him. He finished with 40 points in Game 5. Unreal. Third quarter now. Halliburton is 0 for 5 from the field. So cue TJ McConnell to bring the rain down in OKC. Hits the mid-range jumper there. Nice spinning layup. Indiana's starting to climb back into this game thanks to TJ McConnell. This one, it's a long two. Foot was on the line. McConnell off of the bench would go for 13 points in the third quarter. That's the most in a playoff quarter in his career. But the Pacers would trail after 3. So we go to the fourth, 95-90. Pascal Siakam, he can hit those. Drills the 3. Game's tight. Still a 5-point game here with 7:50 to go. And then a turnover. Case and Wallace, coast to coast with the jam. That would force a Pacers timeout. 105-97 with 6 minutes left to go. Another turnover. SGA with Holmgren. And SGA with an easy lay-in. Good game from him as well. And this is what I like to see. Little drive to the basket. Williams again, high off of the glass. Thunder at this point up by 13. I turned it off and went to bed here. I didn't see any chance of OKC slowing down. Love a mid-range game, and Williams does it again with a fadeaway jumper. Shades of MJ on that one. So OKC sends Tyrese Halliburton and the Pacers packing. A Game 5 win for the Thunder. 120-109 is the final score. Jalen Williams finishes with 40 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander tacked onto that with 31 points. He had a double-double with 10 assists. Had 4 blocks in the game by a guard. Impressive. So those two combined for 71 in Game 5. Aaron Wiggins, Case and Wallace off of the bench. They combined for 25. Solid game for the Thunder. That's now 2 in a row for OKC, and they take the lead back in this series. On the Pacers side of things, again, Tyrese Halliburton, 4 points, 0 for 6 from the field, 0 for 4 from deep. All 4 of his points coming from the charity stripe, which was surprising considering he hadn't really gone to the free throw line throughout the series until last game, and now he has 2 cracks at it yesterday. Leading scorer for Indiana was Pascal Siakam, 28 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Aaron Nesmith and Miles Turner in double figures as well. Interesting. I wanted to get an update on Tyrese Halliburton as well to see how he was feeling. And good news, if you're a Pacers fan, it sounds like he has no intentions of missing Game 6, which is coming up in just a couple of days here. The Athletic tweeted this out today. If I can walk, then I want to play. That's a good mentality to have in a do-or-die game. I will give you that. Pacers season is on the line coming up on Thursday, Game 6 of the NBA Finals. If OKC comes away with a win, they take the championship. Game 7, if it's needed, that will be on Sunday in Oklahoma City. Game 6 is in Indiana. Thursday's game for Game 6, 7:30 start time on ABC. Sunday, 7 o'clock start time also on ABC, which means you can catch them right here on WDAY. You can color me shocked if this series does not go to Game 7. I really don't see a world where Indiana does not bounce back after dropping 2, even if Halliburton isn't all the way healthy. I think if he's just a little bit, can provide a little bit more than, what did he have again? Just 4 points? If he can provide a little bit more, maybe a 13, something like that. I don't see a world where this doesn't go to 7 games. That's my opinion. Who knows? OKC could come out, close the door, on the road, win a championship. Would be cooler if they won it at home in Game 7. That's my opinions on that. But good to see Tyrese Halliburton is going to gut it through. Right leg tightness from what it sounds like. Again, just only 4 points tomorrow. So we'll see how the rest of that series go. Looking forward to Thursday. that is when Game 6 is coming. Of course, we're going to preview the NHL Stanley Cup coming up later on in the show. They're deciding Game 6. A potential deciding Game 6 is coming up tonight between Florida and Edmonton. We'll chat about that in hour number 2. There's a look at the schedule once again, 7:30 on Thursday and 7 o'clock on Sunday. Funny enough, that was one of the biggest games of the NBA season so far, and all the talk in the league leading up to the game wasn't even about Oklahoma City or the Indiana Pacers. It was about what the future looks like for Kevin Durant. And what an ordeal that this has been. I'll try to give you the lowdown on this as best as I can, how I understand it, so you can get caught. It involves the Minnesota Timberwolves here. So here's the gist on what's going on with Kevin Durant. If you don't know Kevin Durant, he's a future Hall of Famer, 15-time All-Star, put up 26 points per game this last season with the Phoenix Suns. 36 years old at this point, so he's getting up there in age, but still a very good player. He's got 1 year left on his contract with the Suns, but from what it sounds like is that the Suns would rather just trade him away and try to get as much as they can and get a return on their investment. Understandable. I get that. Things haven't really been working out for both KD and for the Suns. They haven't had a deep trek into the postseason like they may have hoped for with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and some of their other pieces. So they want to get rid of him, get something in return. KD has made it clear he wants to go to Miami, San Antonio, or Houston. That makes sense. Upstart, young teams who have talent, and they're in the South, and it's warm year-round. I get that. That makes sense. He also was strongly considering the New York Knicks, and we find out yesterday that the New York Knicks said, nah, we're good. We don't want him. We don't want to trade away essentially Karl Anthony Towns to get this guy. So Knicks are out of the picture. KD wants those 3 teams, but the Suns heard that list, and they told Kevin Durant, you know what? That's not how this works, buddy. You have a no-trade clause in your contract. That means we can ship you off to wherever we want to and wherever we get the best deal. So what does that mean? That means that opens up the door for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, what's interesting with this, Timberwolves have pieces that they can potentially trade away. We'll touch on that in just a second here. It opens the door. Also yesterday we found out, though, that Kevin Durant wants absolutely nothing to do with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Okay, I get it. In the Northland, location isn't helping Minnesota. They have talent. Smaller market. I am sure he doesn't want to be in that scene to wrap up essentially in one of his final years of the NBA, I would imagine. But the Suns have made it very clear that they are looking for the best offer. And from what it seems like is that all 3 teams on Kevin Durant's list, the Spurs, Rockets, and the Heat, they've already thrown up air balls with their offers, not even close to getting Kevin Durant. So the Suns are saying, no, unless you come back with a better offer, you're not going to there. So that opens the door again today. Again, this could all happen very soon. Kevin Durant's trade news, that opens the door for the Minnesota Timberwolves to get back into the picture to get Kevin Durant. So let's see if the stars align in this situation, and if the Suns and the Minnesota Timberwolves work out a deal. I would imagine that would mean what? Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, Dante DiVincenzo, Rob Dillingham, Jaden McDaniels. I'm not saying all of them. I'm saying take your picks on who you want. I don't know if draft capital's in there or not. Or not. Ant is untouchable in this situation. The idea would to get KD with Anthony Edwards. Now, here's how I see this situation. I broke it into a list of pros and cons. I'll start with the pros. If this works out and the Minnesota Timberwolves can get Kevin Durant, it's Kevin Durant. The name itself brings height, excitement, a level of excitement to the Minnesota fan base. It'll sell you tickets. This guy's got championship experience, 15-time All-Star, as I mentioned, put up 26 points per game. So that means he can score still at the age of 36, and that is something that the Wolves desperately need if they want to get over the hump and make it to the finals, which they haven't done for the last couple of years, even though they've been so close. I see it as a potential pro. Obviously, Rudy Gobert is fantastic, or at least he has been. That's my opinion. He was great down the stretch in the postseason. Great defensive player. If Rudy Gobert is shifted off to Phoenix in this trade, that opens up a spot for Naz Reid, who I would like not to see go at any point. It sounds like he doesn't want to leave. And it would open up a bigger role, and that's what he's asking for. So to me, that could potentially be a pro. I see more cons in this situation, though. Whoever gets Kevin Durant, whether that be Minnesota, Houston, San Antonio, or Miami, or whoever, you're looking down the barrel of a 1-year, $54.7 million contract, which is pretty hefty. And it sounds like that there is an extension available at the end of it worth like $122 million or something like that. But Durant has said that he only wants to sign with those 3 teams that I mentioned on his list. He'll only sign an extension with them. That doesn't include Minnesota. So really, you're going to do this and potentially get him and have him for a year and then give up the other talent, Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, so on and so forth. I don't know if I love that decision. The other part of this, as I mentioned, he's 36 years old. How much longer does he have on his tenure in his NBA career? I can't imagine he's got much left in the tank. I'm sure he's got another year, maybe 2 of solid basketball, but I don't think he's going to become the face of the league again like he was a couple of years ago. I also look at this as a potential another Jimmy Butler situation. I don't know if that's just me. Do we really want to bring in another star who doesn't want to be here in Minnesota and act like an angry toddler, essentially, and potentially sit out and not play, trash his teammates? I don't think Kevin Durant would do that, although I don't know the guy. But I just, why go back? Why go back into that fold? But again, I mean, there's pros to this. But I just don't see this working out for the Minnesota Timberwolves in the long run. Now, this could all go down, and I could be completely shocked on this. We'll just have to see. But that's the gist on what's going on with Kevin Durant. We'll keep our eyes on that over the next couple of days here, because the news could come down pretty soon on what's going to happen. So we'll see if the Wolves are in the mix or not. Personally, for me, I'd be okay if they passed on this situation. Before we go to break here in our first hour of the show, want to catch you up on what's going on in the College World Series. And if you caught our show yesterday and you watched our What to Watch segment, we did not lead you astray. I mentioned the College World Series were going on. We had a midday matinee yesterday between the number 3 ranked team, the Arkansas Razorbacks, and this Cinderella story in the Murray State Racers. And wow, this game was something else. I wasn't watching until I peeked at the box score and saw what was going on, and then immediately flipped it on. Let's show you the highlights from yesterday's game in Omaha between Arkansas and Murray State. Gage Wood on the mound for the Razorbacks, and he was phenomenal. Untouchable through the first 6 innings. He struck out 13 of the first 18 batters. Impressive. Through 6, he had a perfect game. This in the bottom of the 7th, perfect game, still intact. Great play by the first baseman. Caught it on a weird hop down the first base line, makes the out himself, so it's still there. Perfect game is still intact. Bottom of the 8th, and it's gone. A hit by pitch by Gage Wood, who is a potential first-round MLB draft pick coming up here pretty soon. Gets the fly out there with the runner on. Bottom of the 8th once again. Fastball 96. You're not touching that. 0-2 count. Breaking ball at 85. You're not touching that. So then we go to the 9th inning. A no-hitter is still intact in the College World Series. Bottom of the 9th. 3-0 lead for Arkansas. Looked like he hit another Murray State batter. But the umpires would come together, and look at this. I'll let you be the judge. Did he lean in or not? The umpires would eventually say, yes, he did. So instead of bringing him back, the rule is that that's a strike and you're out. So there's 1 down. 2-2 count, 97 up high, swing and a miss. 2 outs. 1-2 count again. 97 up high again. And there's the no-hitter. First one since 1960 in the College World Series. It's the third no-hitter in the biggest stage of the College World Series. It's one of the best performances that you will ever see. Gage Wood, really impressive. Goes the distance through well over 100 pitches. And what was blowing my mind at the bottom of the ninth, he's still reaching 97, 98 miles an hour. 19 strikeouts. 19 strikeouts in the game. That's a prime Kyle Strecker performance. Kyle's in the back pushing the buttons for us today. That is impressive. So Arkansas stays alive in the College World Series after that masterful performance. No hits, no runs, no walks either throughout those 9 innings against Murray State, who was coming into the College World Series, one of the hottest teams in college baseball. Won the Super Regional against Duke, had momentum going into it. Things didn't go out their way, but just a really, really interesting story there. With Murray State, it ends the hands of Gage Wood, who we will see at the professional level, I don't doubt it, at some point in our lives. 119 pitches by Wood. Also, the interesting thing that happened yesterday, a couple interesting games. We'll touch on it again a little bit later on. UCLA and LSU was playing in the nightcap yesterday. They made it through about 4.5 innings, and then the weather came in, delayed the game. And instead of pulling a Red Lake County, instead of moving locations, obviously you can't do that in the World Series, they decided to postpone it to today. So UCLA and LSU will continue the rest of their game from yesterday, this morning, at 10 o'clock on, I believe, ESPN. And what's also interesting about that is that the winner of that game has to play later on today at 6 o'clock against this Arkansas Razorback team. Oregon State, Louisville also playing today at 1 o'clock. So you got college baseball all day today. So just a heads up on that. 10 a.m., 1 p.m., and 6 p.m. So congratulations to Arkansas. Really impressive performance. Cool to see history yesterday being made on the diamond. All right, with that being said, we're due for a break. Let's set up the rest of our show for today. Again, as I mentioned earlier, at 9:35, Mike Mcfeely's back in studio with us, chat everything that's been going on since he's been coming back on vacation. Happy to have him back on this Tuesday morning. Also at 10 o'clock, I'm calling in the big guns to preview this Stanley Cup final game tonight. Rachel Herzog will join us. She is the eyesight analyst for the New Jersey Devils on MSG Network. She's been watching intently, I can guarantee you that, on what's going on between Florida and Edmonton. She can give some good insight on that series as we get ready for that. In the meantime, let's take a break. When we come back, we got some recruitment news to pass along your way. This full Tuesday morning continues up next. Welcome back on this Tuesday morning edition of Hot Mic on WDAY Extra, also streaming on Inform.com. Just a couple of minutes, Mike Mcfeely will join us here on this Tuesday morning edition of the show. Yesterday, we told you about the news of North Dakota State football adding 2 more recruits for the class of 2026. That happened over the weekend. They grabbed Braden Dozier, the number 1 ranked defensive back in Minnesota from the powerhouse of Maple Grove. They also grabbed a running back, wide receiver mix, kind of a Rajah Nelson prototype, and Mounds View's Godson Rufus Okamhandru. And we had a great conversation with him yesterday. If you missed it, you can go back and podcast that on Inform.com and WDAY+. Yesterday, the Bison added another one in 6'3", 217-pound tight end from Lincoln, Nebraska, in Caden Ward. So he was up for an official visit on Thursday and Friday of this past week, and he left with an offer and pounced on it. So the Bison have a tight end in the class of 2026. Plays for Lincoln Southeast down there in Nebraska. It's in the mix with all the big schools. They went 7-3 this last season. Didn't have a ton of offers so far. Division II Sioux Falls was on the radar, and also Penn, which is in the Ivy League. And what I found is interesting is that Caden, he describes himself as primarily a blocking tight end. He had 10 receptions for 164 yards and a touchdown this last season. Also played on the defensive side of the ball as well. 7 tackles, a sack on defense during this last year. And the pipeline from Fargo to Nebraska continues. Ward is now the 14th commitment for this 2026 class for the Bison. He's the first one, though, out of the state of Nebraska. NDSU had 3 recruits out of Nebraska for the incoming 2025 class that is already on campus. Some really good players there. It's been interesting to see how they've attacked this geography here with 5 recruits now out of Minnesota. You get one out of Nebraska. Haven't seen it. There's been a couple out of Wisconsin. So obviously they're hitting the Midwest region here, but that pipeline from Nebraska to Fargo will continue with this one. And it's an interesting position here. Obviously, he's going to come in a couple of years, still has to play his senior season of high school football. But tight end is a question even this season for the Bison football team. Joe Stuffle is gone. He graduated, so that leaves a handful of guys who are very good athletes, very good players, but who's going to fill that role of Joe, who was more of a receiving tight end and not so much of a blocking tight end. And it sounds like Caden is a blocking tight end. I'll be curious to see who's going to be that receiving threat in that position group as we go on throughout the season. Fall camp starting up here in a couple of months. I'm looking forward to that. Also, an interesting thing that the Bison are attacking right now, trying to keep ahead of the curve. They're throwing offers out for the class of 2027. And I believe we're up to at least 10, I think 11, because they had another one today. 10 known offers out to players in the class of 2027, guys that just wrapped up their sophomore year of high school. So they are looking to the future and building these recruitment classes year after year. So that's another one. Caden Ward, welcome to North Dakota State. We're working to try to get him on the show for later on this week, so we will touch on Caden once again a little bit later on. All right, due for another break. We'll step aside. When we come back, Mike Mcfeely joins us as he does each and every Tuesday morning. A lot to chat about with him. Hot Mike comes back after this.
And I ain't talking about Robbie Grimsley, folks.
Took out the muffins, took out the trail mix, took out the cookies. They stole the monster cookies.
You good? Okay.
Is there a reason why I'm out of the shot?
Hey, he's back. Mike Mcfeely joins us on
I think that
this
was my
Tuesday
old
morning.
open. That's like an open. We're old school for my.
There we go.
For my introduction
throwback.
there. I don't know what Izzo is out of or on vacation or whatever he's doing.
We're running a low class production out here with these.
I actually like that one.
It's a little. It had to welcome you back in style. It's been a little bit.
Anytime the world gets to hear me sing, it's a good day for the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm ready to go for the
let's
rest
go.
of the show now.
Let's go.
How you been? Long time no see.
I just got off a 10-day vacation or thereabouts, so I am refreshed and ready and fired up.
What was the vacation plans? Go anywhere fun?
I fished, I golfed, and I had some cold beverages.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Did you catch anything at least?
Yes.
There you go. Well, that's a win then.
I also caught fish.
Okay.
I don't know what that means.
We'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that. All right. Well, at least you caught some fish in there.
Yeah.
A lot to talk about. I don't know if you've been keeping tabs on everything while you've been away.
I tell you what. I got back yesterday to work, and I find out that Texas State is going to go to the Pac-12 apparently, and that's going to lead to a domino effect.
Yeah.
Which the words North Dakota State were not involved in any way, shape, or form with any of this. So I was a little bit down yesterday about that, although it's not a surprise. That's just where we are. And the other thing that happened yesterday was that Sacramento State, which has openly talked about moving FBS with their president, Luke Wood, I believe his name is. He's been openly talking, we're going to be FBS. We want to get out of JV, which he said publicly one time, which was probably not a smart thing to do since he's going to be in JV for the foreseeable future. And they can't win in JV consistently either, by the way. Sacramento State has been denied a waiver to go independent FBS by the Football Oversight Committee. It's been recommended to the Division I Council. This is all the NCAA mumbo-jumbo bureaucracy.
A million boards. And
just people protecting their phony baloney jobs, which is what the NCAA has been doing for 40 years, by the way.
Doing it forever.
Although I think the oversight committee, that's a committee of actual people who work for a living, as I think the D1 council is as well.
Yep.
It's not necessarily an administrative job at the NCAA. But Sacramento State now is apparently out, not going to be recommended to go FBS. And so it's just all the interesting thing, and I'd like to see more reporting on this, and I don't have the sources. I'm not in that world, but I would like to know why the oversight committee recommended against Sacramento State, because there's clearly a pushback against FCS schools now moving up to FBS.
Right.
That came into play when North Dakota State, again, I'll say it for the 1 millionth time, NDSU was in the conversation in the Mountain West. They had some support among Mountain West people, at least in some areas of the Mountain West. But the presidents, and I think the athletic directors as well, were not in support. And one of the big reasons why is because NDSU is FCS. And Gloria Navarez, the commissioner of the Mountain West, said afterward, she told NevadaSportsNet.com or something, that one of the reasons we didn't, she said there are several FCS schools that would have been great additions, and they certainly could compete in the middle of our league, or maybe even higher. Yeah, higher. Yeah. But we just, the uncertainty of the future of whatever Division I is going to be sort of put up the roadblock for them taking an FCS school.
Well, we chatted with Sam Herder about this yesterday, and I'm trying to remember exactly what he said, and I don't want to misquote it, but I'm pretty sure he said that this waiver going through, Sac State going through, I mean, that would kind of set a precedent of, if Sac State can do it, then other teams can join the independent level. What I'm curious about, and you mentioned it, is that Sac State hasn't had success in the FCS, but they have branded themselves and went out and recruited with this thought of going FBS. Do you think they become a contender in the coming years if they stay in the FCS with the players they have?
I don't. They were okay under Troy Taylor there for a couple of years. They actually, I think, played in the quarterfinals. I think they won 11 games or something that year. I think they might have either won or tied for the Big Sky title. That was 2023 or 22, maybe. That's when Incarnate Word beat them out in Sacramento, like 56-51 or something. Incarnate Word came here then and had an epic game against NDSU. But, I mean, other than that, I don't know that Sac State, I don't know that they're good in anything. Are they?
Well, I mean, see, that's the thing. They're not now, but they've been getting some pretty good recruits. Their basketball team could be decent.
We think so.
Yeah. We think, right? We think. That's a good point. We haven't seen them.
I mean, so Sacramento State, the new head coach is Brennan Marion, who was a highly regarded guy out of Nevada, Las Vegas. And so I don't doubt his skill or his talent. And certainly the president, not the athletic director, by the way, the president was very much selling that they were going to be an FBS program. And so, Brennan Marion came from UNLV to be the head coach, and he was going to lead the charge into FBS, and they thought they were going to get in the Mountain West or the Pac-12, and they're selling recruits on we're going to be FBS. But they have like 50 transfers.
Yeah.
I mean, 50 transfers in football.
Fair.
And you can say, oh, this guy came from UNLV. This guy, well, okay.
But one of them is a Georgia quarterback.
Okay. and he went from Georgia
to Sac State. What does that say? Yep.
Which is the same thing that I talk about in the Valley, which is South Dakota State and USD. They're going to be just fine. Okay. But when I hear that these transfers that they're bringing in, whether it's Sac State, whether it's Southern Illinois, whether it's South Dakota State, show me an example of like a school that's hit on every transfer.
Right.
And where transfers have been like all-American level players.
Right.
We've talked about this before, Sam. FCS All-Americans do what? Do they go sideways in FCS?
Nope. They go up.
Do they go down? Nope. Where do FCS All-Americans
go? They go to the Power.
They go to the Power 4 and make $500,000 or $700,000. Right? Mark Gronowski went to Iowa. McKeese Grace went to Kentucky. Marty Brown went to Miami.
Yep.
There's not the first or second string running back from Miami is not going, you know what? I'm sick of making $500,000 a year. I'm going to go to Vermilion, South Dakota, and I'm going to make nothing in NIL. But just because I want to carry 3 more times, I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not saying that any of these schools aren't going to be FCS contenders, because what is FCS? It's 4 schools or 5 schools right now that can compete. But I want to see Sacramento State. I mean, if you bring in 50 transfers, like, okay, so if you hit on half of them, which I think is about the going rate.
Yeah.
If you look at North Dakota State's transfers, about half of them have been hits, maybe even less than that.
Mm-hmm. I would say, probably less.
I mean, right?
Yeah.
And so I keep hearing all these other schools are getting these, the transfers are unbelievable. Well, North Dakota State is literally the best FCS program in history. And their transfers are like, they're, depth guys.
Yeah.
Tamarick Williams is really good. Braden Thomas was really good.
I'm trying to think who from last season. Osterman was more of a depth guy.
Was a depth guy.
Yep.
The cornerback Marcus Shepard was a good player, but not like he wasn't all conference. He was just a solid, good cornerback who started, but he wasn't like an all American. He wasn't even third team all conference, right? I mean, so
exactly.
The center.
I totally get what you're saying.
The center, Trent Fraley.
He was a hit.
He was a hit. He will be. I think he was the best center in the Valley last year, despite the accolades for others in the league. And Fraley might be like a all-conference / all-American type. So he was a hit.
I would agree.
Right?
I would agree with that.
I mean, okay. So if you hit on 20, if you bring in 50 transfers and you hit on 25, okay, then that's 25 they're disgruntled and not playing. And okay. So
and I'm also curious too if those who feel like they should be playing at the FBS level and they see that they're going to be stuck in FCS, do they go into the portal again? Do they leave the program? That's a possibility,
again,
right?
There's a lot of dynamics, but if you're bringing in kids and saying you're going to play a role, and okay, and then all of a sudden they're second string or third string, and then they go, well, wait, I didn't come here to Vermilion, Brookings, Fargo, whatever, Sacramento, to be a second or third stringer. I came here to play, so I can move back up to FBS.
Exactly.
I mean, there's just a lot of dynamics going on. A lot of dynamics.
Before we go to our first break here, touch more on that realignment. You mentioned it there. Texas State potentially to the Pac-12, so that if the dominoes fall where they could fall, LA Tech could go to the Sun Belt, and then that opens up a spot in the CUSA.
So Tarleton State is being...
Yes, Tarleton State is the school.
So that's where I get confused about what we were talking about earlier about FCS. So Conference USA is okay apparently with an FCS school if the reporting is accurate, and I don't have any reason to doubt that it is.
Right.
From I think Pete Thamel is the one that was kind of writing about it for ESPN. Then, I mean, Tarleton State has been mentioned a lot in terms of some of these G5 conferences, but then that would sort of remove the FCS hurdle, right?
You would think, right?
But it's a Texas. So that's
they
outweighs
have the location, the market.
They won't come to Fargo for an FCS school, even though North Dakota State would bring some panache and some publicity and some juice to Conference USA. They'd rather go to Tarleton State.
I agree with you.
Which I understand. I mean,
I
get
agree
it.
with you. I agree with you. I know the reality of it, and Sam mentioned it yesterday. Media market, location, obviously. I just find it hard to believe
does Tarleton have a media market?
That's what I'm saying. You know,
does Kennesaw have? No,
exactly.
Sam Houston.
I just don't. I don't see that as being the excuse for this anymore.
And especially, I know it's about the TV deals and all that, but I mean, Harrisonburg, Virginia.
Exactly.
I've been to all these places.
Exactly.
I've been to Huntsville, Texas. Huntsville, Texas is like Valley City, North Dakota. I mean, in terms of size and juice and all that stuff. It's not Houston. It's Huntsville. Kennesaw is not, well, it is outside of Atlanta. Nobody cares about Kennesaw State.
Right.
So nobody's watching anyway.
Right.
The one thing you could argue about North Dakota State, and again, I know I'm barking up the tree that just it's not going to happen, but people are interested here.
Yes.
There's an invested fan base.
Yes.
It's a large state, not large, it's a statewide university, a region-wide university where it's not just Like,
And if you want to,
nobody in Sacramento cares about Sacramento State.
Exactly. And if you want to bump even more electricity into the fan base, you bring them in, and that's just going to bring in more.
Yeah, and
more
that
people,
would be my argument.
I would agree with that.
They also get more local coverage here. NDSU does, which in the internet world can translate into national attention.
Yep.
Because we actually have a working media.
Yeah.
In most parts of the media.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. So, again, the dominoes still need to fall on all that. Let's take a break. I got more I want to touch with you here in the couple of minutes we got you. Chat about your favorite, the house settlement. We'll get to that when we come back here on Hot Mic. All right, back on this Tuesday morning. Couple of minutes left here with our guy Mike Mcfeely joining us once again as he does each and every week. You and I were chatting about it off air. I want to get your thoughts on everything going on with the house settlement. I know you were tuned in to Dom's interview with Matt Larson last Thursday. What'd you take away from that?
Yeah, that NDSU is not 100% sure. Maybe they are now. At that time, I don't know that NDSU was 100% sure what they were going to do in terms of opting in, opting out.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody out there in TV land can explain, like give me a bulleted list of here are the advantages to opting in for an FCS school. Here are the advantages to opting out. I would greatly appreciate that because I still haven't, and I've tried to ask and read, and I still don't. I don't know other than the NIL stuff. Like, what is the great advantage to opting in? What I keep hearing is it allows donors to deduct that donation from their taxes because it's giving to the school instead of a third-party collective.
Right.
And then it allows schools to control the NIL more and maybe even throw in some institutional money into the NIL pot, which they can't do with the collective. And Matt Larson referenced that multiple times on Dom's interview, which was schools maybe that aren't raising any money through an outside collective maybe would be more apt to go in because then they can move some money around in the department and steal from Peter to pay Paul.
Yep.
That's not Matt's words; those are my words. To kind of bump up their NIL payments, but I it sounded to me like there were many discussions going on at North Dakota State, and they weren't quite sure what they're going to do. My guess is, and this is strictly a guess, is that they're going to opt out of the house settlement. And I don't, and I truly don't know if that's good or that's bad. I don't know.
Right.
I know that UND is talking about opting in.
Mm-hmm.
I know that USD has said publicly they are opting in.
Yes, they have.
South Dakota State has publicly said they are opting out. And I think the reason, if I understand what they're talking about down there, I think the reason is because they're worried about their walk-ons.
Makes sense.
And I think that's, again, from just poking around and everything, I think that's a factor at North Dakota State too, is the walk-ons have always been an important part of a mid-major, of an FCS program in football. And so I don't know that they want to lose the walk-on aspect of it, because if you have to reduce your rosters to 105, then you lose those extra 20 guys. Everybody is scholarship.
And how many success stories have come from that walk-on category?
And so, but UND is opting in, apparently not official. They've said they're leaning that way. USD is opting in, so that. But I think part of that is that they're maybe able to go down. They're not going to go off a cliff in terms of you have to be at 105 tomorrow.
Right. You can gradually
go down, and then you can sort of manage things as you go along. So you wouldn't be losing all those walk-ons right away, from what I understand. But you'd eventually have to get to 105, and then in 4 years, what is college athletics in 4 years? I don't know. I mean, does anybody know what it is?
Right. It could look completely different. I mean, you and I.
Everything could be totally different in 4 years.
We're talking about FCS and Group of 5 football. I mean, that could look completely different here soon. Do you see the scholarship aspect to that as a positive? Even though, I mean, it's not like they're giving out 105 full ride scholarships, but you could stretch it out a little bit.
But you can spread it out.
Yes.
I mean, okay.
I mean, what does that mean?
Right. I mean, the kids are already getting, as a walk-on, you can still get Alston money, right? You can still get cost of attendance, I think. Maybe not. But there are opportunities for you to make some, or get some money from the school. So I don't know. To me, talk of schools. I've heard from some folks out there that they're like Montana State's going to offer all these scholarships. Well, as Matt Larson said the other day, not speaking specifically of Montana State, but in general, like what mid-major has all this extra money laying around, or either or their donors are ready to give a ton more money. It's like, well, why wouldn't they just give it now?
Right.
And so
why do we have to wait?
There's not like a ton of money laying around at North Dakota State or UND or USD, where that if you opt in, that you're all of a sudden going to go to 80 scholarships in football. I mean, how are you paying for them?
Exactly.
And yesterday there was a Valley meeting, by the way. I didn't hear the results of that.
I didn't either. I'll try to look it up and pass it along on the show if I can.
Of whether, I think they're talking about scholarship limits and all of that stuff. So I just don't know how that went. But I just don't know. All this house settlement and all this other stuff is it's
a headache, isn't it?
It is, but it's where we are. I mean, it's what college athletics is today.
I don't see an update from the Missouri Valley, but the Patriot League expects to maintain their scholarship cap at 63. There's been a lot of others too. Thanks for Sam Herder for passing that on social media. But so we are well past the. All these other schools are opting in. NDSU is going to be behind the 8 ball.
I don't see that as the case. I think what Matt Larson said the other day. I think again. I don't know. I think is that it's really up to the individual institution. I mean, if both North Dakota State and South Dakota State opt out, then that would seem to be a good decision for them because they have had some success in football the last 15 years.
Right.
I mean, there's not two schools that have had more FCS success since 2011 than those two schools.
Right.
Maybe James Madison, but they're out.
Right.
I mean, South Dakota State and North Dakota State are the creme de la creme of FCS football. And if they both opt out, then that would seem to be a smart move by them.
And again, it's more than just football. It's all the other sports involved at the university that you have to be on the lookout for.
And that's the other part about the scholarship stuff, which Matt Larson mentioned was, okay, so if Montana State or whomever, we're going to go 80 scholarships. Well, you have to, for Title IX purposes,
right.
You have to equal that or show, you have to match the 3 prongs of Title IX.
Yes.
Which is, again, another.
A lot of money.
Yes.
For a scholarship. Mike, I appreciate this. Thanks for coming on and chatting about this stuff. I know it's always it's confusing for me at times, so thanks for clearing some things up. And
I got to go call Conference USA now and say if you're gonna bring in Tarleton State, why don't you at least call
give a good argument
701-235 whatever their number is at North Dakota State.
Perfect. Give a good argument. Mike Mcfeely joining us on this Tuesday morning. Appreciate it, man. We'll step aside when we come back. We start hour number 2. We're previewing Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals. So that's next on this Tuesday morning.
The networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo.
Welcome back on this Tuesday morning. Thanks for joining us on WDAY Extra, KSFL TV in Sioux Falls, KNBN in Rapid City, also streaming on Inform.com and WDAY Plus. Big thank you to Mike Mcfeely for joining us this morning as well, chatting all the confusing storylines, at least confusing for me, I'm sure for others out there as well, with college football realignment news, house settlement news. It's an interesting time, no doubt about that. Want to start hour number 2 by chatting a little hockey here. As I mentioned earlier, we got a potential deciding Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals coming up on the line tonight in Florida between the Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. And I've decided to call in the big guns here to help us preview this game coming up. She is the ice side analyst for the New Jersey Devils on the MSG Network. We know her as a former sports anchor and reporter here in Fargo. I've known her, some would say, for too long. I think she would say that because she gets pretty upset with me a lot. But happy to have her back on. Rachel Herzog joins us on this Tuesday morning to chat some hockey here. Rachel, it's been a couple of months. Give the folks an update. How you been since the last time you were on?
Honestly, it's been a pretty boring summer. So once the season ends, I don't know if everybody knows, but it's kind of like a school teacher schedule. So I've had almost 2 months off now, and we don't pick things back up until after Labor Day. So it's been pretty mundane for the most part, but I'm kind of soaking that in as much as I can, considering how crazy the regular season actually is. So
that's why I
hanging out with my kitties and working out, and that's about it.
That's why I didn't feel bad asking you to come on this morning, kind of last minute here. I knew that your 4 cats could handle themselves for a little bit here, and you could get a break. I want to get into the nitty-gritty with all this, with the Stanley Cup Finals. Florida and Edmonton, give us your overarching thoughts on this series so far. I don't think I've seen a finals like it, with overtimes, drama, scoring chances all the time, great goaltending in the mix. What do you think about this series?
Well, overall, I think the Stanley Cup playoffs in itself have been incredible this season, and it's been so fun to watch, whether it's a team that you cheer for or you don't. I feel like you got an entertaining game every single night, and specifically this series as well. There's probably a lot of people, including myself, who were kind of bummed, that it was a repeat of last year. It's the same teams, and whether you want Florida to go back-to-back or Edmonton to get their first in a while, and Connor McDavid to raise his first cup. To each their own, but it's been a really, really fun series. Like you said, ton of overtimes, fights in the mix. Florida's been pretty consistent, I think, throughout the series. They're a nitty-gritty team, heavy, but also very skilled. And you could say the same with Edmonton, too, but I think they've struggled to find a full, consistent 60-minute effort against Florida. It seems as though they tend to go down in the first period and they're scrambling to kind of play a little bit of catch up, but they've done a good job of that so far this series. So they're obviously got a big game 6 on the line for Edmonton to kind of tie things up once again and force a game 7. So I'm really excited to watch this one tonight.
I totally agree with you. We're going to touch on that fighting topic here in a little bit. You and I spoke about it last week when Dom and I had the debate on if fighting should be allowed in hockey. We'll get to that here in just a second. I wanted to ask you, because you were a former defenseman at St. Cloud State. You know the gist of all that, what it takes on that side of the ice. When going up against a player like Connor McDavid is unbelievably hard. And we see it here. He had plenty of scoring chances last game. But what is Florida doing to limit him, have success defensively, and limit his offensive production? Have you pinpointed something there?
Well, I honestly think, you obviously have to be aware every single time he's out on the ice. And I think as a defenseman, if it were me out there, giving a little bit of a bigger gap, because he is the fastest guy in the league, right? And his crossovers are insane. He can pick up and get to top speed like that, right? So as a defenseman, you have to be extra aware of when he's out there and kind of almost anticipate the play a little bit more and what his routes are going to be, and kind of give him a little bit of a grace padding almost to kind of give yourself a chance and not get beat wide. I think that's obviously his biggest strength, is moving from zone to zone and beating everybody with his speed. So I think as a defenseman, they've done a really good job of that for the most part in this series, and obviously they're going to look to do that same thing tonight. But that's something that I've noticed, just having the awareness and being able to anticipate his routes.
Do you think he'll have a good game tonight, if you had to predict?
I would like to think so. I think this is going to be a really big telltale sign if he's going to be considered one of the greatest players.
Okay, so we're getting to that level here, huh?
Well, I think that's always a part of the conversation with Connor McDavid, right?
Fair.
It's hard to kind of compare, you're not going to compare Wayne Gretzky to Connor McDavid. I just think that those types of conversations are too hard to compare players, because the game has changed so much. And I just don't think that that's a fair comparison. But in the game right now, I'd say he's the top dog. And if he's able to handle the pressure of the playoffs and the season on the line and the cup on the line tonight, can he pull his team through? I think that says a lot about a leader and a really good player. So
on the other side of that for Florida, I've been saying this throughout the week, and I want to get your thoughts on this. Sergei Bobrovsky, to me, he's the best goalie in the world. Would you agree with that? Is that fair?
In the world?
Yeah, like who's ahead of him?
He's really up there in the conversation, with how the playoffs went this year. I think it's hard to not put Connor Hellebuck in that conversation as well.
Yeah, good point.
He's probably going to be representing Team USA in the Olympics this year. You know, he was at Worlds and all this type of stuff. So I think in the regular season, for sure, Hellebuck was the top dog in that round. But I think Bobrovsky, time and time again, proves himself in the playoffs too. And he's just really, really, really consistent. And I think that's what gives him the edge maybe over somebody like Hellebuck, who maybe struggles a little bit more in the playoffs consistently. But yeah, I think definitely in the top 3 for sure.
I think it's important to note that the series may be 3-2. Florida has the momentum going into this game, but you really can't count Edmonton out. Like this, there's a good chance this could go to 7. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we saw it last year. Edmonton kind of blazing all the way back in the Stanley Cup final, and then ultimately Game 7. But I don't think you can ever count out the McDavid and Draisaitl duo. They're pretty determined, you can tell. And also Canada hasn't had a Stanley Cup in 30 years. I think they're
been a long time.
That kind of brings it home for the guys up north. So
I want to get your thoughts on this because obviously you're in the league. You know what it's all about. Florida, if they get another title here, I mean, where does that put them in the landscape of things? Obviously, they were the team to beat this season, but they're no longer the up-and-comer. Do you get what I'm saying here? Where does this put them in the league rankings, you would say?
Well, I definitely think these last couple of years, they've really proved themselves to be always in the conversation when it comes to best teams in the league consistently. Right. The seasons that they had leading up to even last year and this year, they did a ton of rebuilding and really doing a good job scouting and finding the key pieces they needed for certain roles. They weren't trying to go out and get the best players they could all the time. They were like, okay, I need a third line wing who plays that role really well and takes ownership and pride in playing on the third line or the fourth line. Because when you have top liners playing on the third and fourth line, that's not what you necessarily need from those bottom guys, right? You need a different kind of game and style of play. And I think they've done a really good job of kind of bolstering their lineup and having specific players for specific roles and then playing those roles really well. And obviously goaltending is a big piece of that too. So I think them being consistently good for the past 3-4 years is really impressive. And they definitely they've earned their right to be one of the best teams in the league right now.
I would totally agree. I want to get into this, talking about fighting in the game of hockey. Dom and I had the debate on this show on if it should be there. Let's clarify this. In the professional level, we are both on the same terms. It should not be in college, USHL, junior hockey, high school hockey. We should leave it out of that. We're talking professional level here, fighting in the game of hockey. I'm on the side of yes. Obviously, it depends on the situation. Dom's more on the side of no, it shouldn't be because it takes away from the good play. And personally, I asked around. I wanted to figure out what people's thoughts on this were. I was surprised on how many people agreed with that sentiment of fighting should not be involved in the sport. I want to get your thoughts on this. Obviously, there was the big line fight in Game 3 of this series. What's your take on fighting in the game of hockey?
I am completely 100% for it.
Okay.
And I think I am even more for it now after working in the league this year and being so close to the game and realizing how much it can really influence the trajectory of a game. You know, there were so many times where, and I work with Ken Danico, a broody former NHL player for the Devils, and he is the biggest advocate for fighting and brawls and stuff like that because the energy that it brings to the game and the way that comes after it, I think is a testament to what the fights actually do. Yeah, you could look at it and be like, oh, they're fighting. This is so immature. No other sport has this. But then you listen to the crowd and half the people in the arena are like, I hope to see a big fight today.
Okay, that was part of my argument, and I heard, not just from Dom, a lot of people said that people are going to hockey games not to see that. So you would argue otherwise?
Yes. I mean, I feel like I've talked to a lot of fans this past season, and a lot of them, are hoping, especially depending on how a game went with a previous team, say, the Devils had a tough time against Dallas, and Dallas had kind of a nasty hit on this guy. They keep record of that, and the team knows and remembers those plays, and so do the fans. So when they come and play against each other again, and you see, oh, this guy's coming into the lineup, oh my gosh, it's going to happen. They're going to go after this guy. Like, it's a big narrative that it surrounds the game. And looking out for your teammates. And also, if you're down and you're feeling like you're lacking in energy, fight someone. And that brings the bench onto their feet and the crowd onto their feet and bringing the energy back into the arena. And that just might be the boost that your team needs to kind of get their feet back in it. So I think it has a place for it. And I like how it makes the game unique to every other sport, because the referees are in the mix for football and basketball. Those things don't happen. But hockey, they just kind of stand back and let it happen. I think that makes it really cool.
I will say, we just were watching video of the line fight earlier in this series in a 5-1 game with 9 minutes left in the third. That probably wasn't needed. You could argue that potentially that gave some momentum to Edmonton in the next game to make that 3-goal deficit comeback. Dom and I were
a lot of frustration.
Well, I think we could do without an instance like that. It kind of premeditated coming up throughout the game.
Well, why?
I don't know.
Why? Okay, yeah, it could take away from the good play, but it's in the third period. It's 5-1. The game's not really going to shift much more. So why not bring some excitement into the third period and let the guys blow off some steam? Like, who cares?
Fair.
You know, and nobody's really like getting hurt from fighting like that anymore. Unless there's like some nasty blow, this guy gets a bruise on the cheek or the chin, and they're playing the next day anyway.
I heard that same argument from Dean Wilson. I hopped on a phone call with him last week and asked him about that. Of course, Dean's our hockey analyst here at WDAY. We got some emails last week when we were talking about player safety, but my argument to that is they're volunteering to do this. They're not forced to go out there and do that. So if they don't want to fight, they don't have to. So
my gosh, it's so funny. I was talking to Paul Cotter this season, and I asked him about the one fight that he's had in his career. And what was so special about that, he's like, Rachel, I literally have asked so many guys to fight me. And so there's definitely, most of the time it's a mutual agreement. Like at a face-off, they're chit-chatting like, oh yeah, we're going to drop the gloves. This is how it's going to happen. Of course, there's some that happen naturally. You know, they're chipping away at each other during a play and they just drop the gloves. But most of the time it is an agreement. Like, okay, we're going to do this.
Yeah. So people can't get mad when others say that fighting should be allowed in professional hockey. They're the ones volunteering for this. They, like you mentioned, they're talking about it. They're going about it. Okay, I'm glad we found some. But I would assume you agree. The youth levels, leave it. Doesn't need to be there, right?
No, I don't.
It's off-putting when you see it at a USHL or a college hockey game.
Well, I wouldn't say it's off-putting.
Well,
I mean, if
it feels weird watching 18-year-olds fight.
Yes. But also, you got to remember, like, college hockey is, like, more like 21 to 24.
Well, okay, that's fair. That's college hockey, but yeah.
Yes, it's not allowed, and there's always penalties after it. I'm not saying I condone it, but if it did happen, I wouldn't be like,
right.
Oh,
I'm not going to be disgusted by it. I get what you're saying. Okay. Well,
I remember being at a high school hockey game when I was in high school, and people were saying, oh, I hope we see a fight, because it was in sections between Hill Murray and White Bear. And I'm like, why are we encouraging them to fight?
Right.
Like, I'd rather see a sick goal
exactly.
At the high school level. That's when I was like, fighting stupid. Why would I want to see that? But at the professional level, I think it's completely different.
Exactly. I got a couple questions left here. We got to get to a break here in a second. I want to get some random NHL questions on here while we got you.
Okay.
I know last time you were on, you told us about your favorite facility, favorite arena, favorite town. Has that changed since you went through the back half of the season?
No, I don't think so.
What was that again? Was that Tampa?
I said Tampa, Washington, I really liked. Gosh, it's hard to remember.
I remember those two. I think you said you liked Montreal as well.
Oh, yes. That was a big one. That one is so loud. That one's just a really, really fun environment. And the people were really nice there. I really liked interacting with the fans and the staff there. I'm trying to think if of course I loved Minnesota.
That was a cool weekend for you.
More nostalgic, memorable game. Other than that, yeah, I think the only ones I haven't been to now are Dallas and Seattle.
Okay.
So I was sick for Seattle. Couldn't go to that game. And then Dallas was a national broadcast, so we didn't cover that one.
Okay. I wanted to talk to you about this real quick while we had you on here as well. I know your favorite all-time arena is the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center in St. Cloud, Minnesota. You played there, you worked there, you practically lived there at times. I was poking around and I saw that they were going to get some funding for renovations. What do you think about that? The Herb might get a facelift here.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting for the school, especially with all the NIL stuff that is happening in college sports. You know, schools like even UND and St. Cloud and the smaller Division I schools kind of fall by the wayside when it comes to money, right? So they have to find different ways to recruit kids. And I think being able to elevate the arena is a big draw for some of those guys, and being able to kind of put that money back into the arena. They had the renovations of the big boards a couple of years ago, so that kind of brought the fan experience to life a little bit more. I know they have to fix some, odds and ends with like the refrigeration and stuff,
that's
like
a big one still.
Mechanical type stuff, but I know that they're trying to do some extra, maybe what's the word that I'm looking for? Cosmetic.
There you go. Okay, there you go.
That's cosmetic thing.
I agree with you. I saw that refrigeration is also a big part of that as well. I don't know if I asked you. You got your pick for tonight? Who's winning tonight?
Oh, I think Edmonton's gonna win, but it's in Florida, and you always want a team to win at home. So if Florida's gonna win tonight. But I would like to see another Game 7.
That's true. I would too. I would agree with that pick. All right, Rach, thanks for coming on, chatting a little hockey here with us. I'll let you get ready for your big vacation coming up here.
Oh, yeah. Thanks so much, Sam.
All right, Rachel Herzog joining us.
Later. Bye.
Bye. Rachel Herzog joining us on this Tuesday morning. Fun to chat some hockey. The pick is Edmonton. I would agree with that, to go to Game 7. Due for a break. Let's take one. When we come back, we continue on with this Tuesday morning edition of Hot Mic. We're talking baseball next. Big thanks once again to Rachel Herzog for joining us on this Tuesday morning, chatting a little Stanley Cup playoff hockey. Game 6 is tonight. 7 o'clock start time for that. You can catch it on TNT. If Game 7 is needed, if Florida does not win at home tonight, Game 7 goes back to Edmonton on Friday. 7 o'clock puck drop for that, also on TNT. So there's the update there. We'll give you the highlights of that game coming up on the show tomorrow. Okay. I mentioned it earlier. Obviously, we chatted about Caden Ward committing to NDSU football yesterday, tight end for the class of 2026. I wanted to touch on Bison baseball as well. Yesterday, we told you about a portal addition that they grabbed in shortstop Cal Jones from Henderson State. And, of course, this comes after Summit League Pitcher of the Year Nolan Johnson announced that he's off to TCU the other day, and also Davis Hamilton announced that he's off to Minnesota as well in the transfer portal. So we're sitting, if I remember correctly, we're looking at Danny Lockenmeyer, Logan Knight, and Landon Koenig still on the market in the college baseball portal right now. The Bison yesterday went out and got some pitching in the transfer portal. They got a right-handed pitcher who looks like he can throw some gas in there. Jack Surdy announced his commitment to play for Bison baseball yesterday. Surdy is a right-handed pitcher. He's originally from the Bay Area in California. He committed to Baylor out of high school and then transferred to Grayson College. This is some clips of him this past season. Last season, the numbers on him, 12 appearances. He made 2 starts. He had 2 saves on the year. He pitched in 20 innings, a 4.50 ERA with 14 strikeouts. What stood out to me was some of the numbers on the pitches that he throws here. He's got a fastball that sits at about 83, a sinker at 92, a slider at 85, and a change at 84. I would say that's pretty solid. And that is an area that the Bison needed to bolster up Tyler Oaks' squad. and it's good to see that they're going out and getting some pitching. And if he is a bullpen guy, they need bullpen guys. They lost a lot in the portal, and they lost even more to graduation as well. So good news there. Congratulations to Jack on his commitment to play for North Dakota State, announcing that yesterday. And, of course, with Cal Jones, I touched on him a little bit yesterday from Henderson State. And what is Henderson State? It's a pretty solid Division II baseball program there. Made it to the national championship this year. Actually lost in the regional round to Minnesota State Mankato to end their season. Jones is a shortstop who's got some speed, 17 stolen bases with the Reddies, I believe they are, this past season. Also batted .316. He had 20 extra base hits, 3 home runs as well. And he's coming in because Jake Schaffner also went into the transfer portal for NDSU and decided to go to North Carolina, team that hosted a super regional this year, as we've mentioned over the last couple of days. So a good addition there to kind of backfill that role. We'll see what Cal Jones and Jack Surdy, I believe there could be, obviously there's going to be more that we'll announce soon, but I think there's another one in the works here for the next couple of days or so. I'd say if you want to look at the Bison baseball transfer portal and what happened after their season was over and these stud players go in, I don't look at it as a negative. Obviously, it hurts for the program to lose some of these great young stars. I look at it more as a tip of the cap to the coaching staff and the development for these kids coming to a mid-major program, developing, proving themselves, and then going to these Power 4 teams that are very well respected in the world of college baseball and making money doing it too. I'd say that's a good job by the Bison coaching staff on developing to get into the point where they're at now. I'm very curious on going forward. If you remember a couple of months ago, we told you the Elon Football new way of recruiting. They posted a graphic on Twitter, which was essentially, hey, we got all these guys to the next level. We could get you there as well. I don't know if a program like NDSU will do that or not, but I mean, I guess you could to get patch guys at the mid-major level and then move on. I don't know if North Dakota State or something is gonna go down that route. I don't know if that's the conversations they have on these recruiting trips. I'd be interested to see how many schools adopt that moving forward in the world of recruiting, with how many players are moving on. How settlements coming around. You got more money in the mix as well. I'm interested. I'm interested on how recruiting tactics will change moving forward. If they buy into that, we can get you to the next level. Something to think about. But those are some new additions for Bison baseball. We'll step aside once again when we come back. Twins are back in action tonight. They got the Cincinnati Reds on the road. We'll preview that series coming up next on Hot Mic. Final half hour of the show here on this Tuesday morning. Sam Getzinger filling in for Dom Izzo this week, or at least up until Thursday, and then that's when we hop into Red River Amateur Championship Golf over the weekend. Dom will be back on Friday. The show will be live on location at the Moorhead Country Club, getting you ready for our coverage on WDAY Extra. Again, we had Chris Howell on the show yesterday. Great conversation, which you can catch available on inform.com and WDAY+. Getting ready for the tournament and what it takes to get ready for it. Just to remind you, with this championship, we will be on the air Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 12 o'clock in the afternoon each day. Friday will go from 10 to 3, and then Saturday, Sunday will go from 12 until it's over. So you're going to get plenty of action. It sounds like we're going to have some Ian Simonich is going to be on Thursday. Of course, he's had success at this tournament, and he knows the Moorhead Country Club all too well. He will join us on Thursday to preview this tournament a little bit more. Looking forward to this. I'm going to be out on the course doing a little on-course reporting, so I'm looking forward to that. Dom's excited for it as well. So that should be a fun tournament coming up. A lot of returning names from last year. Last year was a great tournament to watch as well. The women's side of the field continues to grow, so it should be fun. And again, we'll have it all for you on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Want to chat a little Twins baseball while we have some time. Of course, the Twins are back in action tonight, and as we've said over the last couple of days here on this show, and even last Friday when Corey Provis was on, it has not been a good month of June for the Minnesota Twins. Pitching's been off. That may be an understatement. Run support isn't there. They've given up. They've had 6 games this month where they've given up 10 or more runs. They just continue to build on. The third baseman, Jonah Bride, has been the go-to reliever this month, which is never good. Never good. I could do without seeing Jonah Bride pitch again. I'm sure he could do the same. They do have a chance to turn it around. They're opening up a 3-game stretch in Cincinnati against the Reds tonight. Before we look ahead to the series, or let's look ahead to the series. We'll get to the AL Central standings here in just a little bit. 6:10 tonight, 6:10 tomorrow, 11:40 in the afternoon on Thursday. You can see the pitching matchups there through the weekend. You got the young gun in David Festa, who will get the start tonight. He went 6 innings in a win against Texas last Wednesday. Now, here's the deal. On the other side, Andrew Abbott will start for the Cincinnati Reds. And I tell you what, folks, that may not be a name that you know. I did not know it until last night, but he is lighting it up this year. Holy cow. He pitched a week ago today, went the distance in a 1-0 shutout win against the Cleveland Guardians. He only gave up 3 hits in that game. Fantastic. Let's throw our bats at him and see what they can do against Andrew Abbott, who appears to be one of the hottest pitchers in the league. David Festa will get the go at it. You saw it there as well. Bailey Ober back tomorrow, and then Chris Paddock will join the rotation here to wrap up the series. We'll see how it goes. The Reds right now are towards the bottom. They're not at the bottom of the NL Central, but they're towards the bottom of the Central. But they've been on a heater, which is not a good sign for Minnesota Twins fans. They won 7 out of their last 9 games, including taking 2 of 3 against Cleveland and Detroit in their last 2 series. Ellie De La Cruz, do you remember him? He was the talk of the league not too long ago. Well, he's back. He's hitting the crap out of the ball now. He's homered in the last 4 straight games. He's had 9 hits over those last 4 games. So, good luck, David Festa. Good luck, Bailey Ober. Good luck, Chris Paddock. Get something done. They got to turn it around here. The Twins have. It has been a struggle bus, to say the least. Mentioned the AL Central standings. Pass those along to you. Again, you got Detroit at the top. Twins are 9 games back. Cleveland is 9.5 games back, so just a half game back of the Minnesota Twins. Kansas City is in that 4th spot, 34-38 this year. And the Chicago White Sox are at the bottom. They'll be at the bottom till the dawn of time, it feels like. So that's where the Twins are at in the AL Central standings. It would just be nice to get some momentum here against Cincinnati to move forward. They then return home this weekend with a 3-game series against the Milwaukee Brewers. Sounds like our guy Eric Bonnell is going to make an appearance at that series, so he's looking forward to that. Another thing to note moving forward here is the Twins' injuries going into the Cincinnati series and into the weekend. We do know that Royce Lewis will not be in Cincinnati tonight, tomorrow, or the next day. He's back on the 10-day injured list. And we chatted about this yesterday. I'm sure we'll talk about it with Corey Provis next time he's on. It's just a sad deal at this point with Royce Lewis. You see the injury here. He just gets back to rejoin the team for this Houston Astros series this last weekend. And then the game on Saturday, next thing you know, he gets a crack of the bat on the baseball, running to first base, and slows up. It's been a tough deal. Lower body injury over there again. It's the 7th time now he's been on the IL, the injured list, since he's debuted in 2022, which is tough to see because he has been, when he's healthy, a rising star in the MLB, a spark plug for the Minnesota Twins. We know that. But the best ability is availability, and that has not been the case over the last 3 years, which is just unfortunate. And I would say it's kind of like bad luck at this point. You can't. You can try to prevent injuries, but once you get one and then you re-aggravate it, that's tough. It's unfortunate. Some more news with the Twins there with Royce Lewis out. Deshaun Kiersey Jr. is going to be called back up in his place. Kiersey hasn't appeared in a game for the Twins since May 30th. He struggled at the plate in the big leagues. He's batting 109 in 35 at-bats. He's gotten a little bit better numbers in St. Paul, but not great. He's got 4 RBIs down there and 39 total at-bats. So he'll be up in the place of Royce Lewis. We also know the other injuries on the Twins as well. Byron Buxton, luckily only day-to-day with a left elbow contusion after being hit by a pitch. He left the game on Saturday. Did stay in for a little bit after being hit by that pitch, but eventually went out. It's day-to-day, so I haven't seen anything yet on if it's official he's going to play tonight or not. I'll double-check when we go into the next commercial break. We'll see if he rejoins the team with their trip in Cincinnati. Pablo Lopez on the 60-day IL. Not going to see him for a while. Zebby Matthews with a something strain, subscapularis strain. Couldn't even tell you where that is. But he's on the 15-day IL. So the pitching staff is getting hammered with injuries as well. This is a fully healthy team. We may be looking at a different conversation here in the month of June, but they're not. So you got to face with the reality, and that's what you're going to get in the MLB season. So we'll see what they do. We'll see if they can turn it around with the guys that they have. Again, 6:10 first pitch tonight. We'll remind you of that before we wrap up the show. Cincinnati series, Milwaukee series, and then they stay at home a 4-game stretch against Seattle as well next week. So that's the gist on the Minnesota Twins getting back into the mix of things. We'll give you the highlights of Game 1 coming up on the show tomorrow. We'll step aside once again. When we come back, we'll put a bow on things here on this Tuesday morning. Hot Mike wraps up after this. All right, a couple of minutes left here to wrap up the show on this Tuesday morning. Been a fun show so far. Big thank you to Mike Mcfeely and for Rachel Herzog for joining us. Again, we'll have the Stanley Cup Finals, Game 6, coming up tonight. While we were in the break, I was looking for a Byron Buxton update. I did not see one, but I did want to pass this along, some other news out of the MLB. All-Star games coming up in a little bit. The jerseys have been released, and I want to get some thoughts on this. Let's pull up the picture here of the jerseys. So these are the All-Star Week uniforms for the American League and the National League. Now, here's the deal with this. They're not going to wear them in the actual All-Star game. They're going to go back to the format of wearing their team's own uniforms, just white and the home and away versions, if you will. What do you think about this? I don't know. I guess I like them. I don't really like dark blue on one side and then lighter blue on the other. Maybe get some different colors. There's more than just blue. I've never been a huge fan of lowercase letters. That's weird for me to say for some reason, but it doesn't look bad by any means. I'm not going to buy one, but yeah, I think they're going to wear this for the Home Run Derby, if I'm not mistaken, and stuff like that. So Celebrity All-Star game, or All-Star softball game, whatever they do. So those are the MLB All-Star Week uniforms there for you. Another thing just saw during that last break here before we get into our What to Watch, obviously keeping tabs on what's happening with Kevin Durant. And pull this one up here, guys. This is coming from a San Antonio Spurs beat reporter here. And from what it sounds like here, this was tweeted out in the last couple of minutes, that the Suns reportedly have no leverage in Kevin Durant trade talks and may be forced to lower their steep asking price And that's coming from a Suns beat reporter as well, Dwayne Rankin. So what does that mean? So far, his list of 3 in Houston, San Antonio, and also Miami have already thrown up offers that the Suns deem not good enough. So if there's not as much value in Kevin Durant as the Suns originally thought, does that mean those 3 teams are back into the mix? And does that mean that Minnesota may be out of it? Again, I'm okay with that. Don't think we necessarily need Kevin Durant for any means. I gave you the pros and cons earlier. He's getting up there in age. It would only be a 1-year deal. He doesn't want to come here. If he doesn't want to come here, don't need him here, essentially. So the saga with Kevin Durant continues as we go further into the NBA Finals as well. That's going to be the talk of things, 1A, 1B moving forward. I can guarantee you that. With that being said, it is a busy night ahead with a lot of stuff happening. Let's get into what to watch before we get out the door here on this Tuesday morning. All right, as we've been talking about, you got Edmonton and Florida in a potentially season-deciding, championship-deciding Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Florida just 1 win away. 7 o'clock puck drop for that on TNT. Rachel gave her pick. She's thinking Edmonton. I'm saying Edmonton just because Game 7 would be pretty cool. That wouldn't be bad. Back in Edmonton, see if a Canadian team can get it done. Of course, the Minnesota Twins back in action against Cincinnati. 6:10 start time for that on Twins TV. You can catch that as they start a 3-game stretch there. Also, in the WNBA, we have a Commissioner Cup final spot on the line. The Minnesota Lynx and Las Vegas going at it. 7 o'clock start time for that on the FanDuel Sports Network. So, a lot to tune in. We'll give you highlights of all those games coming up on the show tomorrow. I also mentioned it earlier, a College World Series going on. 3 games today. They were only supposed to have 2, but there is 3 games today. And a continuation from a game that got postponed last night between UCLA and LSU is on right now. So once we're done on the air here, if you want to turn it over to ESPN, you can do that. LSU is leading UCLA 7-3. They're in the bottom of the 6th now. I believe they were in the bottom of the 4th after the rain came in, or when the rain came in yesterday in Omaha to kind of shut things down on that. And remind you on the schedule for the College World Series for today, it's interesting. Winner of that UCLA-LSU game will go on again to play later on tonight, at least as far as I've heard, will play later on tonight against Arkansas, a team that just threw the first no-hitter since, 1960 yesterday? So they will play at 6 o'clock tonight. We'll keep tabs on that. Could be a long day for, it looks like LSU may hold on and win this one. So it looks like it could be a long day for the Tigers. Also at 1 o'clock today, Oregon State and Louisville will have first pitch. All these games on ESPN. Tomorrow there's a couple other games as well going on. We'll remind you of that when we come back on the show then. All right, it's been a fun Tuesday. Again, I'll be here with you tomorrow and Thursday. And then Dom will be back on Friday as we get ready for the Red River Amateur Championship at the Moorhead Country Club. A lot of great golf that's going to be played this weekend. We'll preview that more in the days to come. Do want to say a big thank you once again to Mike Mcfeely for joining us on this Tuesday morning, chatting stuff going on with Sacramento State, hitting a roadblock on their trek to get to the world of FBS. And we'll see what that means for Sacramento State, and especially football and basketball moving forward in the future. Of course, we got dominoes potentially in motion with college football realignment. We could see a world where Tarleton State moves forward. Who knows? But big thank you to Mike for joining us this morning, coming back from vacation. Also, thanks to Rachel once again for coming on, chatting Stanley Cup hockey. Keep your eyes on that one. I'm projecting a real fun Game 6 coming up tonight. That being said, we're getting out the door here. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday morning. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.